The purpose of the Finnish Center at Sauna Park in Fitchburg, Massachusetts, is to preserve and promote Finnish and Finnish-American culture through cultural, social, and athletic events. Although the center has undergone reorganization and name changes over the years, basically the same organization has been at Sauna Park for over 100 years. Early Finnish immigrants established Sauna Park as a place where they could gather for social, athletic, and cultural events.
We do have delicious hot dogs. I'll be serving ice cream, sundaes, lingonberries, and of course strawberries.
The Kalevala, national epic of Finland, not only gave the Finns confidence in their own language, the poems give a vivid picture of early peasant life and have served as a guide to values, beliefs, and customs of the Finnish people.
Hi everybody, I'm Scott Niemi. I'm here at Sauna Park, beautiful Sauna Park, on a beautiful day. A little overcast, but there's a lot of blue sky around. I'm here to talk about my painting behind me, which is called Forging the Sampo. I began the painting as part of a Kalevala celebration which we had back in February, funding was provided by the Finlandia Foundation, so I was very grateful for that. In this painting, which I've spent some months working on and off, there were some general themes I wanted to put in there. I wanted Ilmarinen in there, forging the Sampo. He's obviously in the back. I wanted the juniper tree portrayed in there, as well as the horse that VIIRRE uses on one of the occasions in the Kalevala. So when we had the actual initial filming of this done in the Kalevala celebration or get-together, I did a lot of the underpainting during that time. And that's typically the easy part of it. It's the details that really kill you. So I was up until 1 o'clock this morning working on this, trying to get it to where it was quote-unquote finished. I feel it's maybe 98–99% there. Once the signature goes on, I'm nearly done. So I felt it was in that state where I could put the signature on it. But there's a few minor things I want to do to it still. The horse was the last thing I worked on. This is actually the first horse I've ever painted. So for me, I can say it's the best horse I've ever painted at this point. And we're going to leave it at that. We had to put birches in because birches are very important to the Finnish people. In fact, I have a number of birches on my property, which I like very much. So the theme that kind of came to me was, there was suggestions by certain people about different things, but a lot of it was how do you get it all to come together and make sense and work. And as far as basic painting construct, I always try to think of foreground, middle ground, and background, all being important, and how do you lead the viewer into the actual piece. I'm not into, it is a two-dimensional surface, but I'm not into the type of painting where you're emphasizing the two-dimensionality. I'm more interested in showing some semblance of 3D space. So I thought the meandering river would be a nice touch to lead you back into the, the background with the mountains. And yeah, so the difficult parts for me were the horse, and believe it or not, getting the grass and the flowers and all that to work and to read like there's this kind of space that's leading you back. This beautiful meadow area with nice mountains in the back, and well, Ilmarinen is working away to forge this sample.
Were you inspired at all from the Kalevala itself by any reading?
Yes, I was. In fact, it was a really good project for me, and again, I'm grateful for the grant because to be honest, I hadn't done much reading of the Kalevala at all. And so to get into it and read the mythology and the mythology of the origins of the Finnish people was quite interesting.
You want to tell me a little bit about your own Finnish origins?
Okay, well what's interesting is my brother Todd just had our ancestry done through Ancestry.com, and so we got the results back, and it came back as we're like 49% Scandinavian, of which the majority is Finnish. The other half is more English, Welsh, and that type of thing, which is from my mother's side. But I was born in Fitchburg. I grew up in Fitchburg, went to Fitchburg High School and graduated. Did my first college at Mount Wachusett Community College. And then I spent time, my wife and I moved down shortly after being married. We moved to Lake Worth, Florida, which is another very prominent Finnish community. And we were down there a total of 13 years before moving back to New England, in this case, New Hampshire, in 2003. So that's kind of my Finnish roots. My dad, my grandmother came over from Finland when she was 2, and my dad, of course, grew up in Fitchburg also and went to Fitchburg schools. One of the things that I've kind of formulated through various advice from different artists, things I've read and things like that, is that when you're painting trees, exaggeration is good. You take the natural form, you exaggerate. And as in with still life painting, you always want to think in terms of odd numbers. So you don't want to paint still lifes that have 4 objects in it. You want to go 3, 5, 7, etc. So I try to do that when I'm grouping birches together. And birches are probably the trees that exemplify this more than any other tree, but when they're growing close to each other, they tend to grow away from each other. They're all trying to reach the light. They're all trying to reach the sun. So I always think in terms of, as it was quoted somewhere, nudes dancing on a hillside. They're these lyric forms, they're living things, they change through time, and so you try to get into the spirit of the tree in a sense, and paint them that way.
Then that I know the young maiden, sister of young Youkahainen, went into the grove for broom twigs, leafy sprays for sauna slappers, broke a slapper for her father, broke a second for her mother, even gathered up a third one, ready for her red-cheeked brother.
Rustas or VIIRRE, it all depends what region you're from in Finland. It's usually made of birch. In Finland it's made out of silver birch, and the tie is made with downy birch. Here I have some gray birch and some European birch, weeping birch. How to do this is you strip off the very ends of the branches, and you usually put these branches in towards the middle of the VIIRRE. And the VIIRRE is used in the sauna to stimulate your skin. Usually you dip it in water first, and what I've done is, when I've dipped it in the water, I put it on the stones in the sauna. Then you get a nice aroma of the birch. I've also used sweet birch, which smells like wintergreen. So that's a nice smell in the sauna also. You put about 20 of these together, roughly. All depends how many branches are sticking out on it. And the tricky part is the tie. Usually I don't get a flexible enough branch to make the tie nice and neat. And now the word sauna is the only word in the English dictionary that's Finnish. I don't know if you knew that. There are about 3 million saunas in Finland, with a population of about 5. usual places where there are saunas, or I will say unusual places, is Parliament. There's one and the hockey rink in Finland that overlooks the stadium, so it's a glassed-in box that they can have sauna and watch the hockey game. They're in cars, they're in phone booths, almost anything they'll put them in. The average temperature of a sauna is usually around, the best temperature is between 160 and 180 Fahrenheit, between 80 and, 60 and 80 Celsius.
My mother used to go up higher, and I'd be at the bottom.
Right.
Why higher? Is that hotter?
It's hotter at the top.
Okay, thank you.
Very hot. And the word for steam in the sauna is VIIRRE. And that word is only used in the sauna. That word is not used for cooking or anything like that. It encapsulates the feeling, the sound, the heat, and the moisture that comes off the rocks. Sauna's been documented for the first time in the 12th century, where Nestor, the chronicler, had written that whipping each other and then cooling themselves off with cold water. But it's up until the Ice Age is when they've had signs of that they've had some sort of a sauna-type building. And when the president of Finland, Kekkonen, he would do negotiations in the sauna during the Cold War. And in so many words, he had mentioned that in the sauna, there are no sleeves for politics to be hidden. And this kind of takes the bark off of it. And it just makes it supple so it will bend nice and easy around it when you tie it.
How long do they last?
Well, you could probably do a couple of saunas in it. All you just have to do is wet it, put it in a bucket and wet it, and then put it on the rocks, and it kind of softens it up again. But after these are used, they usually let them dry out and start the sauna with it. So. But there is some birch here if you want to try making one.
Do you leave it to soak immediately after you make it, or do you soak it only before you use it?
Just before you use it. They usually, for sale, they'll wrap these in cling wrap, and they'll sell them that way, so it's really tight. And then, and they actually freeze these, so they have a longer longevity, I guess. So. This is just to make it look pretty.
Round of applause.
Thanks. Thank you.
Finland's native diet of simple, nourishing dishes has been since pagan times described in the national epic, the Kalevala, basically bread, fish, meat, and potatoes. The district richest in ancient Finnish cookery is Karelia, part of which is now ceded to Russia. Karelians and people in the district of Savo eat soft risen rye bread. Karelia also indulges in open pies filled with vegetables or cereal or mixed meat and vegetables served as the main dish of the meal.
Who can tell me what we're making today?
Piirakka.
Okay, can you all say piirakka? How about Karjalan piirakka? Okay, very good. Okay. First thing we're going to do is I'm going to kind of go through the recipe and tell you what you'd be doing first. We'll get to that eventually. But the first thing you're going to do when you're going to make these is you're going to boil 4 eggs. You're going to hard boil 4 eggs. And then those you're going to put cooling in some cold water while you're doing the whole rest of this process. So we wouldn't have to do that right now. I've already got my boiled eggs in here. Okay, so the first thing you do is you're going to boil your eggs. You can put your oven heating, 375. And then you're going to start making your rice filling. You're going to take a large flat bottom pot, such as this, whatever you have, and something to stir with that has a flat edge. I had a round one once, but my uncle just filed it down to make it flat. Something. And you're going to put a cup of water in your pot and 1 cup of rice, a medium or long grain rice. You don't use a short grain rice because that's the kind that soaks up in the liquid, plus it holds its shape like risotto, so you don't want that. So you want medium or long grain. So it doesn't matter any brand that you want, medium or long grain white rice. You're going to wait till the water starts boiling with the rice in it, and then you're going to add 4 cups of milk. You can use whole milk, skim milk, 1%, 2%, powdered milk that you mixed up, whatever kind of milk you have. Half and half will be really creamy. I've never done it with buttermilk. You might want to try it. This is going to be the filling. I'm going to tell you how you get it to this texture. And you're going to have to cook it really low and slow, and for probably almost 30 to 40 minutes. And as it cooks, after about 30-40 minutes, when you look in the pot, first of all, you're going to see milk, and as you're stirring, constantly stirring, if you go away from it, come back quick before anything starts sticking. You're going to look and you're going to see the milk, you'll be stirring, but you'll see the rice coming up. But after about 34 minutes, if you look in the pot, you're going to see more rice than you see milk. And when you do that, that's when you, for about the last 5 or 10 minutes, you stir for about 5 or 10 minutes. And what that does, the whisk is going to take off the layers on the outside of the rice and go into the milk and make it creamy. Otherwise, you'll have like whole kernels of rice, and you end up with something very creamy. Now this, well, I did this and it was very creamy, and I tried to leave it a little loose because I knew it was going to have to sit here for a while. But you're going to end up with something like that, maybe a little creamier, because this has been sitting this morning. But this is what we're going to use, and that's what you have. So then you set that aside and you make your dough. Okay? This I made this morning. And what you do is I use a stand mixer with this thing because it makes a really thick dough. I never use a dough hook. I just kind of personally find them kind of useless. So there's 3 different flours that we use here. And this is the whole wheat. But what I do is, to make your dough, you have your bowl that this is in. White flour, 1.5 cups. 1 cup of water, teaspoon of salt, and you put this going doom, 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 until it's nice and creamy. Then you're going to add 1.5 cups of rye flour. And you can use Hodgson's Mill, Bob's Wood Mill, any kind of rye flour that you can find. And then you keep going until it's pretty much all together. And then I let it go on low for about 5 minutes. So that's like your kneading. That's your kneading. If you don't have that or don't want to do that, you just do this for 5 minutes. You need the rye for the structure, but you need the white flour to hold it together, to be the glue that holds it together. But I roll it in the whole wheat, because if I roll it in white flour, it's going to have a white coating. If I roll it in the rye dough, it's going to have a really kind of a rye, crusty kind of feel. So I roll it. You won't find this in any recipe. So now you've got your dough. Take it out, and you're going to roll it till you get. This recipe makes 16 birkas. Okay. What I sometimes do, I'll cut each of the 16 in half and make 32 little hors d'oeuvre ones. You know, 32. 16, they're going to be about that big. 32 would be that. I figure right now we're going to cut this into 16 pieces, because it's what you would normally do. So you got your dough, and the way I do 16, I usually just cut it down the middle. I know there's some rice on this, but this is going to get rice anyway. And cut it in half. Cut it in half again. Half again. Half again. Half. Okay. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 16. Okay. So now, before we start rolling, I want you. These are fairly new. Someone, if you want one of these, you have to go to Finland or know somebody who has a lathe. Someone I know, if you know Lenny Engman, made these on his lathe for me. You need someone with a piece of wood and a lathe that's then going to taper down as it goes around. And Lenny gave these to me as a gift for doing classes, which I thought was wonderful. Now, there's a reason why we have something like this. Now, if you're doing this at home and you don't have one of these, you can use a regular rolling pin. You've rolled out pie, right? Right. Pie dough. You have to go this way, and then you have to go this way, maybe turn it and everything. Well, I want you to each take one of these. I'm going to try something. Does everybody have one? You can tell this one I've been using a lot because, you know, I forgot one thing. In the dough, when you put the white flour and the salt, 2 tablespoons of vegetable oil or olive oil. Yeah, because see, that's the oil. I've used it so many times that it's got discolored.
When do you put the oil in?
At the beginning, when you put the 1.5 cups of flour, teaspoon of salt, 2 tablespoons of oil, vegetable, olive, whatever, canola, and the cup of water. Sorry about that. And just kind of roll that. What happens when you do that?
It spins.
It goes in a circle, doesn't it?
Oh, yeah.
And if you roll the other side, what happens?
That's the other side of the circle.
The other side of the circle. Okay? I call this Fingenuity. In Finland, where these were made, these birkas were something used for everyday food. And you could send it out with whoever's going out to work in the field or anything. And the other place, so it was a handy thing they could just take with you. Sort of like the Welsh make those Cornish pies to take down into the mines or whatever. Now, have any of you ever watched a Winter War movie?
Yes.
Talvisota. Do you remember anything about birkas in those movies? Usually somewhere along in that movie, there's going to be a part of the ladies preparing food for the soldiers. And they would have whole assembly lines of making these. They would make hundreds of them, maybe even thousands, okay? So now if you're gonna have to roll out a whole bunch of these, and you'll see this once we start rolling, and you're doing this like a pie dough for every single one of these. If you can go and end up with a circle just like that. They can do it much faster. Okay. Okay. Now, just watch. Don't even try to do this right now. Just see what we're doing here. It'll take a while to get the knack of it. It's turning around all by itself, isn't it? Mm-hmm. It's going around all by itself. And the other thing I'll tell you, if you're making a whole bunch of these, you can do 16 of them or 32. Try to use just your fingers, because if you start doing it with the palm, it's going to start hurting your hand. So just...
So are you rocking that?
Just in one direction?
No, I'm going that way. It's coming back. You're probably not seeing the coming back part. And that's,
So you're coming back on the other side?
yeah, you're going this way and coming back, and that's what's making it's rolling all by itself. So can't you see how they could be making these much quicker? Mm-hmm. Okay, so you could get it as... Yeah. You're supposed to be able to see through them, but... Yeah, you'll get the hang of it after a while. Just keep... And if you muck up, just roll it up and start all over again. On one side, go slow motion, and you'll get the hang of it.
Oh, wow, that's really cool.
Uh-huh.
Yours looks pretty thin, so I'm going to keep going.
So you could do this, you could make a batch of these at home. It's just that it'll take you a little longer to roll them. You'll be making a bunch of little pie doughs. So don't let that stop you from making these, because you can't go to Finland to buy one, or you don't have a friend who has a lathe.
So how thin do you make it?
Huh?
How thin do you make it?
Technically, I've been told you're supposed to make them so you can almost see through them, but I've never gotten that far. But that's about the size you want. This is a personal preference. There's salt in this, and you're going to have the butter with the egg. So this is more bland. If you want to add salt, you can. I'm kind of one to avoiding salt if I can, but some people put salt on everything, so that's just a personal preference. I'm making 4 of them here. Okey-doke. Pass that around. What I do at home, like I said, I roll them all first, then I put the rice on all of them, because in case you get a little bit extra rice, you can put a little bit more on each. If you're short the last 2, you can take a little bit off of each, but so you get it spread out evenly over the
How much of the edge should be left?
You want about an inch.
1 inch?
Good. Mm-hmm. There's one. You can pass it around.
So you have 2 tails on each end.
Yeah, so you start at 9 and 3 in the middle. Then you kind of pinch it, pull it down, pinch it, pull it down, pinch it, pull it down. Probably going to get 3 in that half, and then you squinch the end together. Another 1, 2, 3.
So it's a grandmother.
Isn't that pretty? It looks like a...
Yeah, it is. That's what fascinates me, is to just look at them. Pretty good.
But when you come right down to it, they're really quite simple to make.
You've done this before?
I've had people make them in circles and everything. It really doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter, as long as they taste good.
So long as they're going to taste fine, however they're made. Everybody's going to do it slightly different.
No kidding.
That's the dishwasher. Okay, so now put them on the sheets. So know where yours are. We're going to put these in the oven for 15, maybe 20 minutes, depending on how the oven is. So maybe you can take a little coffee break and have a cup of coffee, and then we'll be back here to what we do when they come out of the oven. The way you can tell they're done, this is 375 for about 15 minutes, depending on your oven. It may take a little longer. You'll know they're done when you pull them out, and you can see like bubbling starting in the rice filling.
Yeah.
You can see little bubbles, then you know they're done. Good. Okay. You don't want them in so long that they're turning brown. We're melting the butter into this milk because we're going to give each beet a milk and butter bath when it comes out of the oven. And this is when you need a metal slotted spatula. Plastic is not going to be good in this because it's going to be hot. And you need it slotted because we're going to need to drain things, drain our birkas. So we'll just let that butter melt, and I have a feeling that these will be done right about when that's melted. Okay, what we're going to do, put them in the bath, and usually I tilt the pan a little bit to get it down in there. Kind of one swish to get it to go up over that side. Maybe slush them on. But you want
the reason to bathe them?
It's going to soak in, and they won't be hard and crispy.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so I'm going to do my two. See? Just make sure you can kind of tilt the pan. That's about the amount of milk you want. So you can drain them. So put those two.
Oikein hyvä.
3 cheers for Joyce.
3 cheers for Joyce. Christmas baking is important in every household. In addition to the traditional ginger cookies, fruit tarts, and raisin cakes, every home bakes bulla or nisu, the braided coffee bread with cardamom.
This is the 6 eggs, plus the cup of sugar and a teaspoon of salt, which is going into the electric mixer until it's smooth. To heat the water, which I'm going to mix with the evaporated milk to make 1 quart. This is evaporated milk. You see, by warming this, then when I put it into the egg mixture, I can put the yeast, and it will start forming. I bake it. Other people put it on cookie sheets, but over the years I've collected the old aluminum ice cube pans, and it forms. It's much better. The loaf stays higher instead of spreading out onto the cookie sheet.
Boy.
But I imagine all the ones that you buy, they've been done on a cookie sheet. And a lot of people had never done it before, so I mean, they really did a good job. But at our church fair in November.
So you use 3 packets?
Yeah, 3 for the. I'm going to put the can of evaporated milk, and then I'm going to add enough hot water to make the quart. That will be just warm enough to activate the yeast when I put it into the egg mixture. I usually let it come up to a boil and pour in here, and I have this measured as to what is 1 quart. And I have my butter melting. I'm going to add the yeast to the warm mixture here. Some people put it in warm water till it foams, but this is easier. You can just put it in there. King Arthur is better for coffee bread, but the gold medal is better for pies. And the cardamom, which is...
So how much cardamom you putting in?
2 tablespoons. And then I'll start adding the flour.
Right, unbleached.
You're going to add, it's going to take 8 or 9 cups.
So what do you got there?
The melted butter.
And how many butters is in there?
Well, it calls for 2, but I usually put in 3. I think it makes it richer, and I think it stays fresh longer.
So you really have to have that hook in order to be able to make big things like this.
Yeah. We don't need it. We just put it, by the time we get it all mixed, it works. When it rises, I just empty it out on here. And then we divide it into 6. And I weigh it. I've got a scale, and I weigh it to make sure I get a pound each.
Because that's the consistency.
I mean, the beetle can't do it anymore. So I gotta start doing it by hand. When it rises, it will be coming up over the bowl. So now this will have to keep at least about 3 more cups. It's starting to get thicker. This is when you need a little muscle. You have to keep turning it over until it gets smooth. Pat it down and
We're going to wait for it to rise.
yeah. So now we'll let it rise, and when we see it up here, we'll know it's time to stop. From here. It's just about an hour. Usually it is an hour. Yeah, okay, that's one pound.
How many years have you been making this?
23. That's when my husband died. I said, you gotta teach me before you die. When he was dying, I said, you gotta teach me because I'm gonna have to bring some to the kids, you know. So one afternoon we were making it, and he was just sitting there, and I was doing what I was supposed to, and the telephone rang. So I went to the telephone. I came back, and he's got his hands in it, and I says, no, I'm the one that's supposed to be learning, so let me be with it. Well, I started again, and somebody came to the door. So when I came back, there he was. But eventually, I learned how. For Christmas, we used to frost it and put cherries and nuts on it. VIIRRE.
Yeah, you remember what that is?
Yeah, it's my grandmother used to make it. Oh, there was one that she made with rice, and another one she made with sort of cabbage, and there was another one, I don't know what.
Yes.
VIIRRE. So, fold it over and braiding it. Now the ideal way, but I have never really quite mastered it, you start at the middle and go towards each end. So I don't know how you braid. $3.75 for 20 minutes. What you're supposed to do is is when you turn it up, tap it, and if it sounds hollow, it means it's done. That will kind of keep the heat in. Do you hear it? Black tea.
Black tea.
You could take 1 egg and mix it with, say, a half a cup of sugar, and you could paint them on before you bake them.
Now, where did you get these papers from?
I sent to the King Arthur flower place in Vermont. This is how we make finished coffee bread.
Thank you very much. We had a wonderful time today in your kitchen and to see how wonderfully you make these beautiful coffee breads.
This is a painting done by a lovely little Finnish lady named Elisa Lohm. She came to the United States as a small child, and she has been doing oil paintings. She is self-taught. This is one of her earlier paintings. I happened to see it at a Fin Fun weekend at the inn at East Hills Farms a few years ago. I saw the painting, and actually a friend of mine that I was traveling with was the first one to see it, and she knows that I enjoy art, so she came to me and asked me to come over and take a look at this painting, which I did, and I purchased it. Later that evening, Denise and I were sitting in the dining room at the inn, and this gentleman, who happens to be the editor of the Finnish American Reporter, came and sat across the table from us. And he started describing this painting. He said he had a lovely painting that he saw, and he wanted to take photographs of it so that he could put it on the cover of the newspaper. And I didn't think anything of it, really, until he started describing the painting. I looked at my friend Denise, and she looked at me, and we said, the painting is upstairs in the hotel room. I bought it. He was delighted. So the next morning, we took it to an appropriate spot, and he was able to get a lovely photograph of it. And that is how I came to own this lovely little painting, which is so reminiscent of Finnish lakes and Finnish forests.
We're going to start with a herder's horn and later make a bird. Those are our 2 projects for the day. The things that you have at your spot to make a horn are a strip of birch bark. You'll be getting 2 more, but this one to start with is a good thickness. You have a little bit of lubricant. That's a homemade mix of beeswax and mineral oil. And I gave you a couple of clothespins so that when it's time to add a new piece, you can clip what you're working on and then attach a piece to it. You'll be using an awl. Maybe you brought one. If you didn't, using mine is fine. Some of you have boards and mats to sink your awl into. That's great. So you'll be making 4 holes in your strip of birch bark so that you can sew your bark together with some artificial sinew that I brought. If you want to add a handle to your horn, then that's where using just a little bit of glue comes into play to glue the handle top and bottom. But you can leave it without a handle, and that's fine too. I also left you some popsicle sticks because if you decide that you want to glue on a handle, I didn't want you to get the caustics glued up. So offering a popsicle stick so that you can wiggle the end of a popsicle stick in just enough So you can get a strip of birch bark in there to glue it and not making a gluey mess on tools. Here we are. So this is a caustic. It's a Russian tool. It's made by VIIRRE. And it's used to, when you're weaving birch, to help the material weave into channels. But the way that we are going to use it is, if you take your caustic and at one end of your strip, and it doesn't matter which end of the strip you begin with, run it along the end of it to help it flex more. Move it up a little bit. Then you can begin, I ripped a long length, so, but that will help you to make a tight little circle to get started. So you just, it's not a real mouthpiece like the horn hat, it just has this hole at the end. And back probably over here, so that you have a strip that you can lay flat on your board. And
You know, mine was coming apart at the end and she told me to cut it off.
So we'll grab up a piece of crystals as a line. I'm looking for the example that I had when I came to you and said, this is what you do. Is this it?
Oh, no, you had one that was
Yeah, I had one
apart.
that was, well,
Is that there?
no, not either.
Be a cute little elf hat, wouldn't it?
What I wanted to show you was set my horn down so that the end piece can sit flat. Taking a new strip, set it over 3/4 of an inch or so, and it doesn't have to be exact. Punctured 4 holes with my awl through the 2 pieces as they sit on top of each other. I've opened them up and made the holes a little bit more defined, so it's easier to line them up again visually, so you can see where the holes align. And then reclipped until I get my needle with sinew started. I can see where the holes are where I'm stitching. And I've sent the sinew through just a couple of times. It's really thick, it's very strong.
How long of a piece of sinew should you start with?
A foot or so is more than you need.
Hi, I'm Frank RUOSTEOJA, and I took this course on this horn because I was very interested in the Finnish culture, number one, and I had taken a couple of classes with Elaine, with the star making and the bird also.
Oh, look at this. Just do it. Okay. Do I put the new piece underneath or over the top?
I put it over, and really, Louise, it doesn't matter.
I know you keep saying that, but it matters.
It matters too. Make 4 holes with an awl. They're about a 1/4 inch or so away from the edges of the bark.
Hi, my name is KYMALAINEN. Ida KYMALAINEN in English, and maybe I heard his horn in the Finnish class.
How long have you been coming to Saima?
It's been years. I mean, I've been a member for years.
You should open up your grease. I'm going to refer to your beeswax mineral oil lubricant. So you have your 3 inches, and you cut up to that point. Take just a little bit of grease on the tip of your finger and grease across front and back of a piece. And this is the top of your bird, the top of the wing that we are working on right now. Then, thinking about the pieces, the 4 strips from left to right, fold the first one 45 degrees across the face of this. And don't fold them quite yet. When you do that, be very careful not to fold this piece right at the top of where the end of the slits are. Fold them slightly below where those cut tips are, because it's very easy to tear the bark at this point. You want to let the first one go across itself, pick up the second one, and weave horizontally under this piece, over the third one, and under the last one. You have to lift them very carefully.
Is he forward facing and this is his head, or his wings back in the wind and this is his head? If this is the head, gather the four pieces so that they are aligned. And when you have gathered them up, and it's nice to have this long length so it's easier to make this knot. You're making a loop
Just on the
and sending the material through it to make a knot. And you can make the length of your neck as long or as short as you would like, and then snug it up, and that forms the head. Sometimes I cut the tails so that the feathers appear as points outward, and sometimes as points inward. Sometimes I take two and just snip right across this way and two right across this way, so the whole tail is forming kind of a V. But up to you how you would like to cut them and the length of the tail. Some I make shorter than others, and it's up to you.
I'm Barbara Joki, or Yoki if you want the Finnish pronunciation, and we made these wonderful little shepherd's horns, and they are about as original as we could make them in the United States, and they were a lot of fun to do.
My name is Beth VIIRRE MULDOON, and this is the Herders horn I made today. I'm from southeastern Mass, so I was really excited to take the trip up here to be able to learn how to make this. My father's family was from Finland, so it's nice to have a cultural connection with Saima.
My name is Louise Lumpio. I've always felt a little bit like an imposter because I'm married a Finn, and he had a strong Finnish identity, so that's what we did. I've taken these workshops from Elaine for several years and have so enjoyed. Nothing gets me going more than birch bark. It's just so Finnish. And today we made these horns. I just finished it. It's coming apart, but I'll hold it together. And it's a herder's horn. And some people say that they know how to make it to blow through them, but I haven't figured that out yet. But the herders used to call in their sheep with them, so they must have had some trick. My husband's grandmother, his mumu, she had a lot of these things. She had some of the little shoes, and she had things in her house. I don't remember actually her making them. She was an expert weaver, is what she used to have her loom going, and that was her craft.
My name is Marianne Ahola. I drove down from Maine this morning to make the herder's horn, the birchbark horn. So my connection to Saima Park and Finnish heritage is that my grandparents came from Finland on my father's side, and I grew up in Massachusetts. And I used to bring my daughter here to Saima Park to participate in the track and field events when she was small, and bring my dad here as well. So I'm glad to come back and make these beautiful crafts because I just love doing it. The first time I went to Finland with my grandmother, it was probably 1981, and she hadn't been back in over 50 years. So when she was a girl, she used to sing this song, and she sang it, of course, when she was older, about the cuckoo bird. And it was kaukana cuckoo, which was far away cuckoo bird, I guess. And so when I went to Finland, I took I borrowed an old bike and I took a ride down to the summer camp on a lake, and it was a long, long dirt road through the forest, and it was, kind of remote, not many houses, and I stopped to rest and I heard the cuckoo bird way off in the woods. I've never seen one, but it was nice to hear it, because I remember that song. This cow gonna cuckoo, and and it was just, which I guess means far away. So I don't know if they're seen very often, but